Yes.
Okay, is there any public comment? Any public comment? Any public comment? Do any of the commissioners have any correspondence?
No, sir.
No correspondence. We move next to approval of the minutes of the September 15, 2022 regular meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Keo, second by me. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item on the agenda, excuse me. Fire service and law enforcement news updates. There are a number of items for your attention this time around. Last month, on September 14th, Stamford, Connecticut Fire Department responded to a report of a car on fire, and upon arrival, they found a fully involved Tesla. To quench the fire and get it extinguished, it required 42 minutes of fire department time, 3 hose lines, and 25,200 gallons of water. As the fire marshal noted, the one advantage they had is the battery actually fell from the underside of the car, and this helped them because they were able to get water on top as well as on the sides of the battery. Second item, another example of a group of citizens aiding a police officer. This occurred in a Cleveland suburb, and during a traffic stop, the officer had to deal with a vocal and aggressive driver who then began fighting with the officer, and 4 passing motorists basically stopped the instant they saw the fight start, and they came to the aid of the officer. And having viewed the squad car videos, I would say that the motorist was rather beat down, so to say. The citizens came rushing right in. The first citizen actually rushed in, put his arm between the officer and motorist, and body slammed the guy down to the ground. And then the other citizens piled on top. Milwaukee Police Association, when I first got this report, it was rumored that the NPA was going to be suing the city of Milwaukee over duty firearms which were not operating as the NPA would have liked. There were some uninitiated discharges and injuries to officers. Currently, the NPA is suing the city, seeking replacement of all of the firearms. The next item from one of our partners in law enforcement and public safety, Phil Rentmeester at Maritime County Emergency Management. The DNR was informed of a spill, and upon investigation, they found that a gentleman had been contaminating his property for over 25 years by dumping chemicals, paints, and oils on a pond of his property, and then he placed a pipe and drained his pond onto somebody else's property. And when the other owners found a very shiny film on the water, somebody called the DNR. They believe it was through the DNR tip line. Then I've talked in the past about using blocking vehicles at incidents. This happened in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Carrollton, Texas had constructed their own blocking unit. The second time it was used, it was struck by a vehicle. And I mentioned to Chief Gehring the other day, the driver was actually a victim of the Gehring tool. too many lights, too bright, no sight, and totally distracted.
They could do worse with rules.
Yeah. The next item, this comes from Janet Wilmoth. She mentioned, and she's very aware of what the trends are in construction buildings for protected services. She notes that there's a trend developing in construction, and she references that as shared or co-located facilities, as well as public-private partnerships. A specific example she gave was Madison, Wisconsin, where the fire department is on the lower level of a multi-story building, and then above and around are retail, commercial, and public residential space. So that type of technique has been mentioned during the discussions of the Second Street Corridor Committee. And when the original, I shouldn't say original, the most recent study from the police department, that dates 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, during the discussions after the report was presented, public-private partnerships was also mentioned as a possibility, as a cost saving. The other item, this was not included in the packet, Memphis Fire Department paramedic unit, another fire apparatus struck on the interstate. This case, the driver had 3 prior arrests for DUIs. And the both the Memphis Chief of Department for Fire and the police chief wondering rather vocally, how did this guy get back out on the road? Spokane, Washington, they are seeing an increase in the number of attacks on their fire EMS crews, and the Chief of Department there is seeking to purchase protective vests for his crews. This both being physical and armed attacks. And the last item, I can find my extra copies. I found this the other day, and this was a list of vehicles being sold by a firm in Melrose Park, Illinois, who bill themselves as a dealer in quality used government vehicles. And I just picked out the prices for a number of those items that they're selling. They do have full descriptions on their site, but I didn't go down and bother to list the agency or state from which these were being obtained. I know, Chief, how does this correspond with what we've been seeing on the used market?
Well, I see in the bills that our newest one was about 37,000. That's the Dodge Durango. So I think we're still doing pretty well.
Okay, next item. Review and discussion with possible approval of a resolution and/or policy regarding paying the fire department and police department bills. You should have in your packet, a copy of the resolution and a copy of a policy. Now, these are draft copies that have not gone through Attorney Wolfgram's office yet. In the resolution, or the proposed resolution, whereas the Marshfield Police and Fire Commission is an optional powers commission, whereas the commission has the duty to audit and approve bills before payment by the city treasurer, and whereas vendor billing practices and payment due dates vary and may not be in alignment with regular meetings of the commission, be it resolved, a commissioner may act on behalf of the commission to audit and approve bills before payment by the city treasurer. In addition, regularly recurring bills for natural gas, water, electricity, sewage, telephone and cellular telephone service, garbage collection, may be audited and approved by the chief officers of each department or their designated administrative assistants. Policy is pretty much the same thing, except we're excluding the statement about vendor billing practices. So the question I have, we have the two, what is the preference, what are the thoughts of the commissioners?
I would like staff to look at the last, that draft.
Which one, the resolution?
Yeah, the resolution of policy, both.
Okay,
I'm not sure that we have authority to give up our responsibility to department heads. The statute says we audit the bills, the commission audits the bills. And I'm not sure that we have authority to say, oh, it's okay for department heads to audit the bills. I'd like a reading on that before we move forward.
okay, that's no problem. Like I said, this is a draft.
No.
Steve?
I'm in agreement with Andy.
Okay.
And then also on top of that, if later it's discovered that this is an allowable thing to do, those bills should also come to the general body of the commission,
Okay.
included in it, just so we know what's kind of going on.
I agree with that too.
Mike, you have anything to add?
I was gonna say, we all know why this came about, and I think at some point, if the power to is gonna be transferred, at least for some of those items, to officers of the department, that at some point, as an afterthought, it's reviewed by the commission. You know, it might not be included on a timely basis, but there will be there should be some oversight included by the commission. If the convenience of time and for the finance department and their schedules to make those particular payments, the ones that are specified here, and maybe we could include those so that at some point along the line, the commission does get a finance on that.
Okay, I'll note those comments on the drafts, and I'll make sure that Attorney Wolf Graham gets copies of both the policy and the draft resolution.
I have one comment.
Yeah.
Just to be specific, it says that the authority, if approved, would be granted to the chiefs. Sometimes it ends up being the chief's designee, so I think that it should be specific as to what the commission wants, as far as who can approve and who can't, if the designee is appropriate or not.
Okay, that is being added to the notes. Okay, so just for review, when these go to Attorney Wolfram, check with him about what I'll reference as the options of having the chief officer or designee or the designated administrative assistants for the recurring bills. And also add, for the recurring bills, a point of approval for or by the commission.
You know, basically, I think what we're suggesting is that we need to review all of the bills, even though they've been approved
Okay.
by an individual commissioner.
Okay, I will make notes on copies of those and we'll get those to the city attorney. Okay. Item number 7, review and approve proposed 2023 ambulance service contracts. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's all yours.
All right. So this is standard process that we've gone through year in, year out. I understand for since when, 1981, or slightly after that. As far as increasing the rates for our townships that are around us. The finance department looked at CPI for the Midwest region. Medical care was around 5%, and all items were about 8.1%. So we landed on 7% from the standpoint that even our budgetary expenses for 2023, at this point, that will be going to the council next week, are going up by 7.4% for the EMS fund. So we landed on a 7% rate increase. So that's the justification for what we are proposing. Now, it's up to your discretion as far as what that rate will be, but this is what we are proposing.
Any questions or discussion?
Well, this is the third meeting I've had in 10 days. Where because of the environment that we live in today, we're squeezing the customer, if you like. In one of the two cases preceding this, the decision of the group was not to do that, but to back away because everyone is getting squeezed. We're doing it now with the fire department and the proposed bills for false alarms and so on. 7% seems, in the environment that we're living in and the trouble people are having meeting their daily bills, feels high to me, but I don't know that it feels high to anybody else.
Well, I think if you look at the projected increase, the suggested increase, and put that across the entire population of the area served, then that is not as significant.
To the supervisors in the townships, it's going to be an issue.
Steve?
Just to make sure I understood, you're proposing a 7% increase, but things have gone up either 7.4 or 8.1.
Yeah, so let me clarify. All items is kind of like the bread basket of everything that you're buying at your home. And this is how the Bureau of Labor Statistics does their inflationary measures. And so all items for the Midwest region for August seasonal, like a year increase, is 8.1% from this time last year.
Right.
So that's all items. Our budgetary expenses have, in 2023, have gone up by 7.4%. So what we're projecting is 7.4% increase. So that's why we landed on 7 instead of going to the 8.1. So even though everybody else is probably feeling 8.1, we're showing 7.
So is it suggested to go to 7.4 or 7%?
7.
Why are we dropping it almost a 0.5%?
From the perspective of what the Commissioner Keogh just mentioned, we're trying our best to not hammer at the hammer as best we can, but
yeah,
we are showing it. So.
Mike, anything to add? Yes, no.
He's trying.
Oh, he's talking.
Mike, we're not hearing you.
Probably because I added on mute, so you don't even talk. I can understand what Andy's saying about the town chairman. They always, they have their own interest to look out for, and there probably will be some concern about this, but on the other hand, we have to provide the service, and we have to, God knows, we gotta cover our costs, so it's just part of doing business, I guess. increase, so. That's all.
You need a motion.
We do need a motion to.
Accept the recommendations of the
Yes.
ambulance.
Question, Jordan, do we vote on this? That is final, or does this go to finance budget?
This goes to finance and budget and then through common council. Yeah. So,
Okay, so then we would approve, looking for a motion to approve the ambulance service contracts and send those forth to finance, budget, and personnel.
So moved.
Motion by Andy,
Second.
second by Steve. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is it roll call? Yeah.
Okay, do a roll call.
Meek,
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
You know, when you put it on mute or whatever you do, Mike, and then you talk, we see your mustache move, but we don't hear anything.
I might be eating something too,
All right, approval of police department bills.
Thank you. Good morning. You should have two sets of bills in your packets this month. One was signed by Commissioner Keel on the 28th of September, and the other was signed yesterday by Commissioner Pinker. The only thing that I saw of note was on the second packet, which I believe is 8-0. We subtracted out of the total bill the $37,500. That was for the Durango that we just purchased, because that's our capital improvement. We weren't trying to hide anything there, obviously. We just want to have a clear number. We did receive the Durango, and hoping to get some lights on it and stuff before too long. As far as striping, I did reach out to the schools to see if there's anyone interested. We haven't heard anything back yet. So we're going to be looking at some striping options and be presenting those to you guys when they become available.
Do we have any questions?
No, sir.
I would ask that you approve the bills.
Okay. Do we have any motion to approve?
So moved.
Stephen, Andy. Roll call, please.
Meek,
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
All right, approval of fire department bills.
Like the police department, the fire department had two sets of bills. Those are approved by Commissioner Meeks and Commissioner Pinker. The three things that were notable in there: full body adult CPR and trauma mannequin, which you can find on page 9C. That one, that was a replacement of one of the mannequins here in the department. The old one had kind of met its service life. This one will allow for additional training for EMS, trauma, also putting tubes in to make sure that our paramedics are keeping their skills up. Another one, it's kind of a smaller one, but just the Kahoot subscription that kind of goes along with our Fire Prevention Week in the schools. We've been doing a lot of our activities and we're able to get back in the schools this year. So that one's been a valuable tool for us. And then the last one you'll see, which would be on page 9F, Wisconsin State Fire Inspectors Association. That one's a big organizational thing that we go to over in Green Bay. Chief Fletty is actually the first vice president of that organization, and I'm the 9th area chair. It's kind of a large area around the Wausau area here. With that one, we send our personnel each year. It helps us to do fire prevention training and also helps us with getting our fire inspectors trained up to the newest and latest standards that are out there. So those are the bigger bills that you'll see.
Anybody have any questions?
I do, only because looking at this, do each of our paramedics and firefighters individually have or are equipped with the quick clock and also tourniquets in case they have to use it for themselves or a coworker?
They are not individually. We do keep all the resources. We have them in our in our resources that we'd use along with the police department, if you need to go into a school, we have them in those packs. We also have them on the ambulance, but we don't have them on each person. Maybe something to look at in the future.
If they got trapped or something, I think it would be nice if they had it.
Absolutely.
They can apply to themselves.
And Deputy Chief Baker's coming back. We're going to talk to him about that.
When is Steve back?
Steve should be back this week. This will be his first week and the second week. So the end of October, he would be back that final week.
Just for those that are listening, could you explain where Chief Bakos is?
He's taking part in the DMAT team. DMAT has been deployed down to Florida to help with the hurricane. I'm not sure what exact part of Florida he's in, but he takes care of the supplies and gets resources for the team so that they can continue their mission. Their mission right now is to support the hospitals. In the area that they went to, the hospitals are all down. They're trying to do the infrastructure repairs to get those back up and running, but they're basically setting up a field hospital and taking care of everything in that area.
Okay, thank you. Now, I have I guess you call it an inane question. Is there really a company called Dummies Unlimited?
There actually is, and that's exactly where our mannequin came from. So yeah, it's kind of a funny one. I was looking through the bills myself, and I did start to chuckle at that.
That's when I had to type it in.
I mean, if anybody's gonna be able to get you a good mannequin.
Okay. All right. We need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Seconded.
And is the roll call, please.
Meek,
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Keo, Myers.
Yes.
Police Department Training and Activities Report.
Okay, well, we're starting to ramp up our training, more of the on-site stuff, which is we did some in-house training, some emergency vehicle operations, which we have to do every 2 years to stay certified. We've been doing those up at North Central Technical College in Merrill, and that's been working really well. A few things I wanted to point out in this month's activities is the first is on the 9th, we had a brat fry that was put on by Wheeler Chevrolet. We were able to raise around $2,000 for our canines between the brats and the merchandise that we sold up there, the t-shirts and stuffed animals and coins that we have. It was a great opportunity, and we're really thankful for Wheelers for reaching out to us to put that on, so that was wonderful. We also had another fundraiser to raise money to buy the food cards and things that we can hand out to people in certain situations when they need some food or whatever. Culver's put that on, and we raised almost $3,400 up there to put towards food. There was donations. I saw one check from a gal that we called personally for like $500 for donations for food. It was just wonderful as the community stepped up for that. And finally, we were able to induct the Fred Beal Award at the museum on the 28th. That was an experience. Commissioner Keo was there, and it was neat to work with Shirley Book on that, and he'll be displayed there shortly. There's a few ends to button up over there yet, but it'll be on display before too long. If you haven't been down there, it's really cool. With that, I would ask that you place the activities on file, unless there's any questions.
You have a question?
I do. If you look on 10C, 28th and 29th, Badger State Conference by Wisconsin Federated Humane Societies. What is that?
Officers Larson and Wolf are ordinance officers, and they are humane officers. So that's a training or conference that they put on for the humane officers.
All right, thank you.
And 2 points. On the first of the month, a multidisciplinary team meeting at Marshfield Clinic. Is that the team that deals with child abuse?
That's it.
And then the other point, just for those that are listening, could you just give a brief overview of the facility at Merrill where you do the EVOC training?
Sure. A number of years ago, North Central Technical College was able to put together a training center up in Merrill. They have, at this point, very reasonable cost for us to rent that facility, and we can use their vehicles and their track to do pit training or pursuit intervention techniques. So it gives us an opportunity to go up there and actually practice that technique every now and then to knock the rust off, so to speak. And actually, literally, with some of the vehicles up there, they're getting old. But we were able to use those skills, and so we rented the facility for, I think, 3 days, 8-hour days, and we're able to get almost everybody through that training. In addition to the pit, we did some vehicle contacts, and we did some low-level scenarios and things just to keep us fresh and moving. So the facility is really outstanding. I know that in this area, they're kind of the benchmark, and there's other schools that are looking to compete with them in the future. So,
Thank you. Next item, approval of request to begin promotional process for the position of Assistant Chief for the Police Department.
yes. Assistant Chief Zeps has not yet put in a date for retirement, but he has provided us with a window, and that's in December, January area that he's looking to retire. And what I'm hoping to is to run a promotional process internally so that we can identify the next in line, and whenever Assistant Chief Zeps is ready to retire, that person could make a smoother transition into that Assistant Chief position. The Assistant Chief position is a very, it's a complex position. They have their hands in a lot of jars, so to speak. They're the direct supervisors for our lieutenants and involved in most of the operations, day-to-day operations of the department. I think that position will take some time to learn, and having somebody appointed to shadow the current Assistant Chief would probably be a real benefit for that person to better become acquainted with that position and to transition more smoothly. With that, of course, they would have to understand they would not receive the pay until Assistant Chief Zeps is officially retired. But I think they would appreciate, the next person would appreciate the opportunity to learn the job a little bit before starting anyway. So with that, I'm asking to start a promotional process for the Assistant Chief so that they could take over when Assistant Chief Zeps does officially retire.
How much overlap do you anticipate there being?
Well, I'm hoping by the time if we start a process now, we probably wouldn't have someone appointed until the middle of November. So depending on when Assistant Chief Zeps. Well, if provided that Assistant Chief Zeps would give us the date within that time. So there could be some leeway. If he decides to stay a little bit longer, we would wait to do that. But
Okay. And you've got the money from salary savings to cover what you need.
well, there wouldn't be any difference if we hire internally because
Well, you'd have to have somebody doing the new Assistant Chief's job.
well, they would be staying at their same rank until it's just Assistant Chief Zeps would retire.
All right.
So we
All right.
hopefully wouldn't have any impact there.
I agree wholeheartedly with it. I think it's a win-win for the applicant and also your position administrator to get them appraised of what they need to do completely.
So they keep their same job, but then they have the next job up.
Yep. Well, they would be doing double duties.
Yes, sir. Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Seeking a motion to approve the request. Motion by Meek,
Second.
second by Keel. Any discussion?
How many,
Did
no,
Mike have something? I'm sorry.
Mike, you got something?
Guess not.
Yeah, Jody and I have discussed this a couple times, and I think this is the logical route to go as far as a smooth transition at the point in time when we have to have a change. So I concur with him.
Any more discussion? Call the roll.
Meek,
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Keel,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, fire department activities, training and correspondence.
We've got a few notable things here. We did do the EOC drill this last time. That was a citywide drill that took place in the park here, or in the classroom. And all parts of the city actually took part in that. That was a cyber terrorism drill, something that we kind of see nowadays, starting to hit a lot of different areas. It centered more with IT, but we did take part in those activities. We've had tours of multiple facilities. We've gotten a chance to go and take a look up at the Marshfield ER, the new MMC ER, and also the different components that go with that. Nelson Jameson was another one, and then Jimmy John's, that's a different building, different type of construction that we're dealing with up there. That's all wood frame, so that's a new change. It's a sprinkler building, but we got a chance to get our crews in there to take a peek at it ahead of time. Another one that we've taken care of is aerial truck operator certification, practical exam. That was completed by all the staff members that were in that, and they've done a great job with that. Another thing we did over the month is partnered with Wood County Health to deliver the vaccine clinic here at the Marshfield Fire Department. So that took part, and you can see that on page 12D. Job shadow, we did start our job shadow program. That's something we've been working with Mid-State Technical College and also the high school system, so we can get new people coming into the department. This gives them about 6 or 7 visits so they can come to the department, ask questions, take part in some of the activities we do. One of our most notable ones that we just had recently, our job shadow, she got a chance to partake in a couple pretty high acuity EMS calls. So she really wants to get into the health field, so it definitely helped her with hers. And then the last one, or the one we'd like to kind of look at too, is Mid-State Technical College Advisory Board. All 3 chiefs took part in that, and that helps us to kind of connect with Mid-State Technical College and also the UW system to start to get our students in there. And that's all part of the job shadow program that we've already developed. And one last one I'd like to look at is the call volume, September 2021 versus September 2022. You can find that on page 12D through 12G. We've had call volume up about 13% for the month of September. And 2022 total call volume is up 17.6% versus 2021. But definitely seeing a lot of calls coming in that we didn't have in previous years.
I know it's early in the morning for me, and things don't function as well as they might. I heard you say all 3 chiefs were involved.
I apologize. 2 deputy chiefs and chief.
Oh, okay.
I apologize.
Okay. I thought I missed something big.
No, you did not.
Any other questions or comments about the monthly report?
I do have. With this increase in the amount of calls, how many personnel are we still down?
We're down 3 personnel overall, and we're also down 1. We have Lieutenant Esker, which we'll bring up a little bit later. Lieutenant Esker's been out. He's got a long-term illness that's going to get him out to the end of his career, which would be December 24th. So we won't see him return, so we're down 1 on green shift immediately.
How is he doing?
Lieutenant Esker, he's doing okay. Just he ended up having an illness where he has to be on a medication that will not allow him to return to work.
Yeah, okay.
But he is functioning well. He seems to be doing well.
Any other questions or concerns about the reports? I just note from the pictures that child care centers returned back to you. The one I liked the best was when the guy went down the pole. Who went down the pole?
He would have been one of our firefighters. I'm not certain which one, but we typically do that when we do our tours throughout the fire department. We try to take them through all the spaces, living quarters upstairs, and of course the downstairs, and then also the apparatus floor. And in between there, we've got the map room where the pole is, and a lot of times we try to It's kind of fun for the kids to watch it happen. Of course, they all want to take part in it. That kind of restricts them.
All right. Accept and approve the retirement of Lieutenant Kelly Esker.
Okay. On that one in your packet on 13A, you'll find Kelly Esker's retirement notice. I'm asking for commissioner approval of Kelly Esker's retirement on December 24th, 2022.
You need a motion.
We need a motion.
Yeah, I move that we accept Lieutenant Esker's resignation with real regret.
He was a valuable asset to the department, and we definitely feel his loss.
Yeah, and wish him well. I mean, he's.
Okay, we have a motion. Steve,
Seconded also with regret. He was a fine firefighter and paramedic in the time that I worked with him.
we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'd like to add, so there's in the minutes that, I appreciate his service to the department and, wish him well in the future.
That will be noted. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Meek,
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Keel,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
And then approval of the request to fill a firefighter paramedic vacancy created by Lieutenant Esker's retirement and recommend same to the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee.
On page 14A, you'll find Kelly Esker's bio. It's got a lot of information on there. He did start with the department September 5th, 1995. He was one of the first paramedics or one of the first EMTs to transition to paramedic when we went paramedic. So he's on the founding portion of that. He did work his way up through to be a lieutenant here at the department, and he's done an excellent job for the department over the years in all positions that he took part in. With that being said, I would ask for approval to fill Kelly Esker's position in the fire prevention budget.
Move the fire department be permitted to move forward to fill the vacancy left by Lieutenant Esker's resignation.
Second by Steve. Roll call.
Meek,
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Keel,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Okay, item number 15, discuss and approval to promote Relief Lieutenant Jason Shadd to Lieutenant in advance of Lieutenant Esker's official last day.
If you could please see the memorandum found on page 15A and 15B in your packets. In preparation for Lieutenant Esker's departure from the department, we did hold a promotional exam on August 31st, 2022, and Relief Lieutenant Shadd finished the lieutenant process with the highest score. Jason has worked hard and continues to put in great effort in improving the department at all levels. He's done an excellent job over the years. What I'm asking for is requesting permission to promote Relief Lieutenant Shadd to Lieutenant on green shift earlier than Lieutenant Esker's retirement date of December 24, 2022. The reason for this is Lieutenant Esker is not returning due to his medical condition, and green shift will not have a lieutenant on shift. We'd like to keep the continuity of the officer program moving forward. Where we do see a difference, and we're going to see the cost come in, is the difference between Relief Lieutenant Critical Care Paramedic to Lieutenant Critical Care Paramedic. We're looking at about $272.12. The number of pay periods with 2 lieutenants on green shift would be 3, and the total impact would be $816.36. What we're looking at is we had some funds available from the beginning of the year for my position, which is the Deputy Chief of Fire Prevention. That went from January 1st to April 18th, where we did not fill that position. The overall cost savings for not filling that position was over $15,000 for salary and benefits. So we feel that this is not going to impact the department in a negative way. That's why we'd like to ask for that. So if approved, we are requesting permission to conduct Relief Lieutenant Shadd's swearing-in ceremony at the November 10th, 2022 PFC meeting.
Any questions, discussion? A motion, please, to approve the promotion.
I motion.
Motion by Steve, second by Andy. Any additional discussion? Roll call, please.
Meek,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Okay, that is approved. Presentation and discussion of the first draft of the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department potential revenue fee schedule.
This one was a little bit interesting when it went to the finance, budget, and personnel meeting, but please refer to 16A and 16C of your packet for this item. That's gonna have the first draft that we did, and it'll also have the second draft in there. At the September 15th PFC meeting, we presented the information, our Chief Floody presented the information on the fees for false alarms, certain calls, and re-inspections. At that time, we were directed to take it to the Personnel, Finance, and Budget Committee meeting for the first reading there. When we took it to Finance, Budget, and Personnel, the information was presented, and the committee requested that false alarms / re-inspection fees be raised higher. Their thoughts on that were, if we're trying to take care of inspection problems where we have problems within a business or we have problems within their fire alarm system and we're being called, it's an undue cost to us. They felt that it should go higher. Some felt it should go higher than 2,000. We felt that it should be a little bit more moderate, and we went more along the lines of the $1,000 range. If you look at the second page, it would be 16B at the bottom, the adjusted false alarm fee schedule. What we did is we went from first alarm, no charge, second alarm, no charge. We went up to the third false alarm. At that point, we bumped that up to $500. The fourth false alarm, $750, and fifth and subsequent false alarms would be $1,000. That was what they reflected. That's why we wanted to turn it back to the Police and Fire Commission to make sure that's what was in the best favor of the department or the fire department. If you look over at initial inspections, what we did look at is the initial inspection was no charge. The first re-inspection was no charge. Second re-inspection would be $50. Third re-inspection would be $100. Fourth and subsequent re-inspection would be $200. And we basically just scratched the fifth re-inspection fee. It just said it's going to be $200 every subsequent one after that. The goal in doing that with the re-inspections is we spend a lot of time with court. We have a lot of hours wrapped up in that with the non-compliance. First step, non-compliance. Second step, writing citations. Third step, moving to court, and then legal fees. A lot of times they'll go to the court system and they're going to basically say plea of not guilty. Then it leads into further attorney fees. So we feel that this would be something that maybe would help us to curb that. We would still have that option available for those that are very difficult to deal with, but we would try to do that through this part and then also do a tax intercept on it would be the goal with that program. For the other ones, motor vehicle accident, structure fire, and vehicle extrication, those all remain the same at $500. We did not feel the reason to raise those in any way. I felt that the fee was where it should be.
The non-compliance, how often do you actually have court citation, that process?
Over the last, well, since I've taken this position, I've been to court at least 8 times. So I just went yesterday. Unfortunately, that one wasn't necessarily thrown out, but it has to be served through the police department now. That was per the judge. So that'll be coming here in the not so distant future. And that one deals with a business not far from here. They will not make contact with us. They avoid everything and will not take that part. So I've got hours and hours wrapped up in that particular one.
Yeah.
And we feel that this is going to be a process where we could maybe alleviate some of that.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
I have a question regarding the motor vehicle accident, vehicle fire, and vehicle extrication. I understand the amounts, but is this billed to each vehicle involved, that same amount? Let's say they obviously in an accident, so that's $500. or is that split between all the vehicles involved? Just kind of wondering.
I believe this would go to each primary insurance carrier.
Has anybody reached out to insurance companies to see if that's something that those companies will pay?
We have not,
Or nothing like that?
I'm not aware. It's something certainly we can reach out to them and we can report back.
You have, if I remember correctly, at least some review of what area other fire departments are doing, and this is not, this is in the range, right?
This is well within the range, especially for those fees at the bottom there. Those are well within the range. False alarms are typically a little bit less, but it was the direction of the finance budget and personnel committee to raise those fees on the false alarms.
I'm just playing devil's advocate with this in my mind. So sometimes when officers and fire department respond to the scene and of an accident, it's kind of somewhat difficult to decipher who's the most at fault or totally at fault of an accident. So to me, I'm trying to look at this as at the perspective of our customers. If they fall victim, let's just say that they rear-ended, they're completely stopped at a stoplight, they're gonna get billed potentially for half of this or however it's gonna be billed out. So it's like pouring salt in the wound in my opinion. It's kind of difficult, you know, with economic times, not only for the city, but our customer base. I just have a hard time with it.
I believe insurance companies take that on. So the insurance company would pay out for the person that was rear-ended, and then they would go after the other insurance company to recoup costs. I believe is how it works.
I was very happy to see that you started at the rate that you did, and then they bumped you up out of respect. I know that you're not here to make money, and I remember at that meeting that is what Chief Letty said. But yet, we need to know that people that need to be accountable for the situations that are going on. So I'm very pleased to see that this was brought up and that it's hopefully going to move forward. And as far as
Deputy Newell.
thank you, had stated about those 4 items, no matter if you're involved or it's your fault or not, you still pay a percentage of the accident. So I guess maybe that, you know, that's kind of a, right? That's kind of a yeah, but the person that's the biggest fault will get the biggest bill. That's what it seems like to me as I talk to my insurance agent also. So hopefully that's the way it's gonna work, but I understand, Steve, where you're coming from. Yeah, in the times that they have now, another $500 bill. But that's unfortunately the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
And one question that did come up there at the Personnel Finance Budget Committee meeting is when it looked at vehicle fire and vehicle extrication, typically those two will coincide with one another. We'd have a vehicle fire in some cases where there was a strike. In that part, we looked at that, and that's something we can waive one cost or the other, so we're not hitting them with a double whammy on those. That is not, I mean, that's all something we can build through LifeQuest, and we can work on that in the box to say, don't bill for this or bill for this. So.
That was one of my 2 questions. You can waive some of these fees if the circumstances are such that you feel it's warranted.
That is correct. It's similar to what we do with EMS. EMS in some cases, if it's warranted, we can waive a cost as well.
Yeah.
And that's all built into LifeQuest. That's the nice part about utilizing LifeQuest because it comes right off from a report and the information we put in that document.
Yeah, thank you.
But
The other question I have is regarding inspections and looking at the second and subsequent and the step increases up to 200 from 50 to 200. It would be nice to maybe also look at what is the hourly rate of an inspector to go in and do this job of inspecting. Are we even breaking even at $50 for a reinspection versus the reality on the ground cost to the city of doing this?
that's correct. And this will get further into the fee, when we get into the fee schedule for permits, we figure that is about $75 is about 1 hour, which would be a billable hour. Once you get done with fire apparatus, and we get done with personnel costs, that's about what the price comes out to for that $75 fee. With this one, we wanted to put a stepped approach to it. So those first two, because a lot of times people forget that an exit light is out. That's where the initial inspection comes in. That's where we capture those things. So if we see the exit light is out, we write it up. We say we will come back in 2 weeks. We'll take a look at it and make sure that it's been fixed. When we come back and they still haven't fixed it, that tells me that it wasn't necessarily serious enough for them at that point. That's why we took the stepped approach at $50. And then from that point on, it doubled. So if they're able to fix it right away, it's going to be taken care of. And then at that point, we would capture those additional costs because we've got additional time tied up in that and also the inspection program as well to try to take care of those. So that's why we went to that stepped approach, and that's why it doubles each time. And then subsequently, we didn't want to get to the point where we were $10,000 for a re-inspection. That's why we capped it at $200. It seemed to be the best process to do. And if they haven't fixed it in that first attempt, that's why we went to the $100. It's a little bit more, and then each time after would be the $200. So we feel we've captured those costs in there.
On the false alarm fee schedule, the adjusted schedule, Deputy Chief and I have discussed this before. I take a somewhat more harder line on this. I would like to see the second false alarm be referenced at 250 and the 500, 750, 1,000. And then on the fire inspection schedule, second re-inspection, I would like to see that kicked up to 100, third re-inspection at 200, fourth re-inspection at 300, and each of the 300 would be the baseline. Every inspection beyond the fourth, it's going to be 300 plus 100 plus 100 plus 100, so you'd have a $100 add-on for every one beyond.
Yes, you'd like to see that fifth, and we're talking about the fifth and subsequent re-inspection would be, or fourth?
It would be at the fourth level, so the baseline there would be 300, and then every additional re-inspection would be
An additional $100.
additional 100 added to the base.
Okay.
So start at 300 versus 50 and 100 on top of each of those. Is that what you're saying?
I think on the
Yeah,
fourth,
so the second re-inspection is 100, third re-inspection 200, fourth and subsequent, the base is 300, and then the fifth would be 300 plus 100. If you go to the sixth, it's 300 plus 100 plus 100.
A quick question. You said 75 would cover your costs. And that's 2 people and the truck?
no, this would be one person.
One person.
Yeah, that would be one person. Typically, when we do our fire inspections, it's one person that goes out and does that fire inspection. Sometimes we will get into company level inspections, but we wouldn't bill for a company level inspection because that's more of a training aid for our personnel.
All right, all right. I have a question, and you may not be able to answer it, but the mayor is here. And Mayor, were you at the meeting, the personnel?
Yes, I was. That's how come I knew
Yeah.
the action that was taken at that meeting. Yes, sir.
What did they actually do at that meeting on this issue?
Okay, the gentleman from the fire department proposed I'll just make the first example, the false alarm, the 3, 4, 5, and the personnel budget and finance committee came back and saying, no, we feel that you deserve more because of the situation. And again, Chief Fletty said, we're not here to make money. We're here just to make this happen. So to give people I guess, would it be more reality of this happening? So we, as the finance budget committee, not me personally, but the committee felt that it needed to be a step up, which I think that was great of them to do, only because it gives the person that's getting the fine, again, more reality, because sometimes $300 is not a big deal, but 500 would be more plus,
The amount of money isn't what I'm interested in.
Okay.
What I'm interested in is, did they say, we won't approve this until you change the numbers?
This was their approval they brought back, correct, Everett?
I can speak to this too.
Thank you.
On this particular one, They asked if we actually take this, they unanimously voted on this, to take it to the common council meeting, which would have been October 11th. And for presentation, increase the false alarms and take that forward. When we talked with Commissioner Myers, he had stated that this should really come back before the PFC committee. And when we did that, we basically pulled it from the consent agenda and said that we would bring it back at a later time until it could be reviewed here at this committee.
Because I think the statute is clear. Personnel, what is that, finance and personnel? What is the committee?
Finance budget.
Personal finance
Finance
and
budget.
personnel, yes.
Don't have authority.
That was our recommendation. That was their recommendation
I
as,
want to make sure that they didn't decide.
no, they did not. That's why it was pulled from the agenda last week after Commissioner Myers talked to, yes, sir, yes, this is basically their recommendation.
Yeah, because I'm real fussy about it.
That's okay, and absolutely understandable. Yes, yes. We want to make sure it's all done correctly.
This one went forward to common council, and that meeting was supposed to be October 11th, and that's where they were looking to get approval of this. That would be their realm.
That's fine, as long as we decide what the schedule is.
Absolutely.
That's correct.
That's why I came back to this
Yeah,
committee.
that's fine, that's fine. Just making sure my nose doesn't get out of joint.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, Andy, with that in mind, when this discussion came up earlier, that was a recommendation to hold off till Commissioner had their hands on this proposal. Then in the proposal in general, I think it's an incentive for the people who are lax and following up on the inspection. The incentive would be to take care of business when it's pointed out to them, so it doesn't drag on and drag on. We send personnel back and forth a couple times. So I support that, and especially the false alarms. As long as these all include an educational process, I mean, these people, if they're hit up with something, the first false alarm, that they're told, that it's pointed out to them that subsequent ones will result in fee for the services. My biggest concern out of all three of these is for false alarms, to fire up all the equipment and all the manpower and shoot them across town in emergency mode for no reason at all opens the city up to a lot of possible litigation, the possibility of having accidents, and besides that, it's a wear and tear on the manpower and equipment. So after two of them, absolutely the third time it should be paying their fair share for either that or bring their equipment into compliance. I understand new construction and stuff involves one or two possibilities of having a false alarm, but with knowing that they could be charged at some point in the future, that they'd probably want to get a handle on it quicker than later.
And I'd also like to just comment on the false alarms. We can also waive those too. So if we know there's a problem in the system, we've already addressed that problem and they just haven't had time to get someone there, we're not gonna just continue to rack these up and then just hit them with fees and fees and fees. That's not the intent of this. This is for the problem business that literally has a problem in their system that we can see through the compliance engine,
Yeah.
and they refuse to fix it. So that's what it comes in.
The idea that you can waive them when the circumstances call for it is important to me.
Yes.
You know, a guy owns a business, something happens, his wife has a stroke, he's behind in lots of stuff, he just doesn't have time to get it done or fixed.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to waive it, you know, that's important, I think. No, I think this is fine, and I would move we go forward with what's been recommended.
Okay, at the end of the day, I'd be asking for approval on this. So I'm asking for commission approval to move the second draft that you see here with the adjustments that we made today. Move that draft to the fee schedule to the finance, budget, and personnel consent agenda at the October 25th Common Council meeting for further discussion or approval at that time.
That's a good motion.
Okay.
That's mine.
Okay.
I have one last question. The fire department's looking at doing this with the false alarms. I think it should maybe be considered doing this also with the police department for false alarms? Same fee schedule and everything?
We actually do. We've got a smaller fee. Ironically, yesterday we were looking at raising that. We charge, I think right now we charge like $68 an hour at the quarter hour. So whatever quarter hour we spend on that call, we charge out. And that's inconsistent with what we bill at, if someone were to want security at an event, we would bill around $70 some an hour. So we were looking to raise that to be on the agenda probably next month. Yeah, that's okay. I'm glad you brought it up. I think we wanted to go to about $80, which is more consistent with what we would charge other events. It's a couple dollars more, but we can't plan for the false alarm. We can plan for an overtime. So
The only concern I have with that is that the response is different to an alarm versus an event that's planned. It's not somewhat emergent, and the liability goes up in responding to emergent situations. So I think that it would, in my mind, justify a higher rate similar to what the fire department's charging, maybe not as much because maybe not as much personnel and equipment's going to that scene, but somewhere.
that's why we.
Let me just interrupt there for a second. Let's deal with the fire department.
Right.
And then let's put the police department's fee schedule for a future meeting.
Okay.
And Chief, would you come back with suggested fee schedules for events and for what I'll reference right now as an emergency alarm response?
Yeah, actually, we would develop a policy which you guys would have to approve.
Okay,
So we'll do it in that way.
okay, very good.
Quick comment. What we have in front of us now is not based on hourly rates or whatever.
Right.
We've looked at ours and
You were
hourly.
talking about hourly rates. I don't know how you calculate hourly rates, but you're low in terms of what you pay per hour.
Yeah, we look.
Police officer.
Yeah, we look at. We've had a rate established for a while, and I don't know how it's figured out.
You know, you can take the average compensation and benefit package divided by the number of typical hours that you get out of a police officer, and you're going to find it's more than $80 an hour, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. We'll see if we can come with accurate, and what our plan was, actually not to go through finance, budget, and personnel, because this is something we already do. We're looking at just updating the fee schedule.
Yeah.
Through this
Yeah.
commission.
So we'll take care of that agenda item for next month.
Yep, I'll have it out there.
Okay, so now we have a suggested motion regarding the fee schedules. What I would like to do is take each fee schedule independently.
Okay.
So we have a false alarm fee schedule.
And we've,
We have a suggested change of moving the second false alarm to 250, keeping the others as they are. Do we have a consensus on that?
okay, go ahead.
Your
16B.
16B. So that second false alarm is 250, and then the others stay the same.
So we start out at 250, 500, so 50 and 1,000.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so then, do I have a motion to approve the false alarm fee schedule with the changes noted? Motion by Steve, second by Andy. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Roll call, please.
Meek,
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers,
Okay, we're now moving to the fire inspection fee schedule. The initial inspection was $0 First reinspection, 0. Second reinspection moved to 100. Third reinspection was at 200. And fourth and subsequent, it was $300 plus $100 for each of the other re-inspections.
Clarification point on that?
Yep,
Are you looking to put a cap on that at all, or we just continue letting it go?
keep it going.
Okay.
I would think after they wind up in court, that should slow it down.
And this won't deviate from that as well. I mean, we still have the
Right.
ability to go through court if we need to on those more
Right.
properties, but hopefully it'll alleviate some of the
Yeah.
problems that we're having.
Okay, so do we now
Move we accept as presented by the chair.
motion to accept, second by Steve. Any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Meek,
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Then, service calls. No suggested changes, so they would be 500, 500, 500, and 500. Do we have a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Andy, second by Mike, second? I second. All in favor? Roll call, please.
Meek,
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers.
And just before we move to the next item, I just relayed a point that I had mentioned both Deputy Chief Mueller and Chief Fletty. This is regarding the response fees. Where my mother-in-law used to live, their fire department, the rural department, they charged per hour for firefighters, per hour for officers. They charged a per hour rate for engines. If they had a ladder truck, it was a per hour rate for water tenders and every water tender refill. And I think they also charge for deployment of the porta tank. Question came up a number of years ago, and I did check with some of the area departments, and a lot of them were charging, rural departments were already charging $500 to $1,000 basic call, with nothing beyond that. All right, next item on the agenda.
Just clarification, this is okay with the motions we just had to move this to the,
Yes, this is okay to move forward.
okay, thank you.
Tell you what, let's do a motion now.
Thank you for your patience.
Requesting a motion to move the adjusted fee schedules forward to finance, budget, and personnel.
And I didn't know.
Seeking a motion to move the approved fee schedules forward to finance, budget, and personnel.
A motion.
I don't know that you need a motion to do that.
It at least gives direction.
All right, all right,
I mean, because some of these came from them, just let them know what's going on,
all right.
okay?
Meek,
Thank you. All in favor? Roll call.
Aye. Yes.
Okay, I guess we had unanimous roars.
Can I say something with this though? It'd be nice to come back to this in a year or so and revisit it and see if it's adjusted. So that we're not waiting 2-3 years or whatever. To ensure that we're at the right level at the right time.
An annual review, in other words?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
And I can almost promise, one of us is gonna get phone calls about this.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's actually okay.
Yeah.
We anticipated it at the fire department as well.
Yeah.
Love talking points for our personnel.
And I guess, let me just toss in something else before we move to the next item. Just regarding court appearances and the time that's involved. I was up here a bit ago talking to one of the shifts, and after the meeting, walked out to the lobby, and Deputy Chief Mueller was discussing this type of issue with a business owner. And hearing part of the discussion and knowing some background, this gentleman did a fantastic job in explaining and I guess trying to diffuse and put out some little fires that were involved in this situation. Having heard that discussion and having had some previous discussion as well, some of these things really get complicated, and some of the participants sometimes can get a bit feisty about having to follow the rules.
Gentlemen, yes. Thank you.
All right, next item.
You know what, we're also gonna get phone calls about. It's the only thing I've ever gotten phone calls about.
About what?
When he changes the squad car.
One of my suggestions was actually put your phone number on the car.
Yeah.
There you go.
It saves time.
Perhaps we could do a co-location on the squad car.
Well, instead of Squad 96, it's going to be Commissioner Keogh's phone number car.
I was thinking splitting the color right down the middle. Have blue and white for Marshfield, Columbus, and have orange and black on the other side of the car for public schools.
I don't know how I can fit.
As
I don't know
long-
how I can drive a car only one direction. Drive in one way.
No, I tossed that out simply because I believe my colleague over here once suggested flamingo pink.
Oh, yeah. I think they all ought to be pink. I think the fire trucks ought to be pink.
Chartreuse is bad enough.
Well, I'm open to suggestions.
Yes.
You sure are.
Pink is nice.
Ordinance 1480 bonfires. It's all yours.
All right, please refer to 16A and 16C of your packets. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong one. Page 17A and 17D of your packets for the proposed bonfire ordinance. Why are we requesting this? This is gonna add a definition. So if you look under 17A, on page 17A, section 1, and it's gonna be the little pair down there, A. For the purpose of this section, a bonfire shall mean any fire that is not inside a building or structure that does not qualify as a recreational fire as defined in section 631 of the city code. We do have recreational fires, and we want to take out this is a different type of fire, and it puts a definition to it. We typically put a definition of greater than 4 by 4, and that means there's going to be a lot of people in attendance. We feel that these bonfires, and I've had probably about 3 or 4 requests this year. We typically do this through, if you actually go back to page, it's going to be, I apologize, it's farther back, but it's actually the bonfire roles of responsibilities. You'll find it on 18D. This is what we utilize within the department itself. The problem, and where it becomes problematic, is no one else has enforcement because it's an internal policy. So if the police department were to encounter one of our bonfires or where we're not going to be on scene because we don't feel that it's large enough to be on scene, they can actually dictate that they put it out. So that's going to give them a little bit more police power on that. That way, if you find anything that's, they're doing damage, doing any issues or any problems, that's going to allow them to come into the scope of this, and even ordinance officers to take part in this as well. So we feel that this is better situated to be in the municipal code. It also adds a requirement for the permit. So if you look under section B on that one, it's for every bonfire, there must be a person designated at the bonfire event sponsor who shall be responsible to apply permission in hosting the bonfire, and allows a checklist that goes along with it as well. So this is going to give them some kind of guidance as to how this is supposed to be conducted, and it also creates positions within their own little parastructure, so they have someone that is ultimately in charge of it. So that way they have it. They have to meet with the fire department prior to, so we can go through the fuel sources, we can talk about the site to make sure it's not too close to houses, and then it also allows us to decide whether we want to have the fire department on scene. Where we would see that is like at school events where we know we're gonna have a large amount of kids that could be present with probably less than the adequate chaperone that should be there. So in that case, that's gonna allow us to at least address this ahead of time, and then allow us to put a fire engine there and an ambulance, just to make sure everything's going the way it's supposed to. So that does give us the ability to do that.
In those types of events, should we look at in the future adding that to that fee schedule if we're gonna?
That'll come up just a little bit later in our next part. We had to kind of present this one as just a bonfire, but there will be a fee assigned to that as well.
And the size of these is limited to what dimensions?
4x4, and as big as they can get is 6x6.
How many people in there?
We don't really have a number set to the personnel. I mean, that's something we can certainly look at, but we don't really have a certain people because, you know, if you go to the high school, they want to do their bonfire during prom or whatever area or homecoming. At that point, it'd be very hard to designate how many people could be at that fire. I think that's going to be kind of limited or kind of an issue.
Has the city attorney reviewed this yet?
Yes, this is actually his reviewed section. He went through and revised it to what we see in front of us today.
Okay, so this person that's supposed to monitor it and or be in charge of it, I forget the title of that person.
Chaperone, it would be
It's like fire supervisor.
supervisor.
Maybe I overlooked it. If I have, please correct me. That fire supervisor, in my opinion, should be someone that's reasonably sober, and I don't know how that could be worded in there. Someone that's responsible cognitively to ensure that, you know, safety is in tow, you know, basically.
Yeah, we call it to go back and be the safety officer. That's a person that's established. It's kind of going off our ICS terms,
Okay.
but it's kind of following in. But if you kind of read through this, I believe it captures all that because it basically says they have to monitor the crowd's behavior in an effort to provide public safety for all members, including visitors. Public safety includes, but is not limited to preventing destruction of property, reducing the potential for violence, and addressing any quality of life issues.
Okay.
So I think it kind of captures that without coming out and saying you can't have a drink.
Right, and I'm not saying they couldn't, I'm
Right.
just saying that.
They need to be within reason, right? I think some of the other things that are also enforces all applicable rules and regulation and remains ready to address any violations of the law, including contacting law enforcement. So I think right there by that one, I think it does capture the language you're looking for.
I'm glad that you've included the police department ordinance and able to enforce this and have it extinguish it.
And that's a big piece. I think if we're, you know, we do have a lot of concurrent ambulance calls, and if they happen to be on site and they're able to do it, they can make that decision right on site and not have to go back through. So that's where I feel like this is a very important one to put in the Marshfield Municipal Code.
It's a great addition.
Just want you to know, when I grill at home, my fire is bigger than that.
Well, sure to invite us so we can have some. Yeah, now you have to invite us.
I've got two questions. One is about having 3 2.5 gallon, a minimum of 3 2.5 gallon water fire extinguishers rated 2A. We're looking at the old-fashioned hand pumps, pressurized water, backpacks.
Pressurized water, we'd be looking at the silver can.
Yeah.
That would be the one we'd be taking a look at. And that may be something we could even rent to them. We could purchase a few here. That's not something we're trying to be limited to, but we're trying to make sure that they have the safety precautions.
Okay.
If they can't establish that, we also have the right to man or staff that, and those applicable fees for our staffing would also go in line with that.
Okay, having come out of a laboratory setting, I've got no problem with this on page 17D at the top, clothing. In terms of, you know, non-synthetic and so forth, and closed shoes. I agree with the inclusion, but I think this is a point that has to be forcefully emphasized for those people that are in the safety role.
Anybody that would be subsequent underneath them, I think would also
Right.
be applicable to this as well.
Is there a limitation on time of day that these can transpire? Because I know that it says that they have to be, I think, about 100 feet or 100 feet or more from other structure.
Correct.
But when you're talking about a bonfire and no limitation on people, voices carry, the later it gets in the evening.
I think this would be balanced by the ordinances that are already on the books. I don't think we need to put it in this ordinance because we already have a sound ordinance. So sound ordinance, and then also we have, you know, if kids are under age of curfew.
Yeah, there's curfew depending on the days, it's staggered out.
So we still have a curfew that's gonna kind of limit that. We've also got, like you said, the sound ordinance, I believe that's gonna question that. So they'd have to pull multiple permits and kind of go later than a certain time, but we'd have the discretion over that.
The problem with the curfew, unless it's meant to be written, it has to be on public property, not on private property where you can enforce it. And what, is that changed?
No, I think that's good, that's the same.
So these would probably take place on private property, I would think, unless it's at a school or something like that. So you can't enforce it.
There's disorderly conducts,
Yeah.
there's still noise variances, there's.
I feel those would capture.
Yeah, I think we're okay in that area. I should to address this one.
And that
one
way,
here.
I think that would assist them as well if they go to a sound, you know, if there's a problem with sound, they can say, listen, we have the bonfire request or the bonfire ordinance, you are gonna have to put this out because it meets multiple problems with the municipal code. So I think it definitely helps and addresses that.
Thank you.
Just looking at the time, before we seek a motion on this, we'll be in recess for 5 minutes.
Okay.
like a motion to approve ordinance 1480 bonfires.
Motion.
Motion by Steve, second by?
Mike.
Second by Mike. Roll call, please.
Meek,
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Keo,
All right.
Myers,
Yes.
Presentation of the update to our current fee schedule to better reflect time and resources.
If you look on page 18A and 18C through 18C, that's going to be the document that I given to the Police and Fire Commission. With this one, this is the better chance to reflect the fee schedule for tent, firework, bonfire, and fire suppression permits that we're currently utilizing in the community. What I did is I took that and I broke it down. So if you look under tent permits, we feel that we have approximately a quarter hour to review the permit and evolve. Evolve is the system that we utilize for all permits for the city of Marshfield. So they go through that process and it gives us a quarter hour there and 3/4 of an hour for actually going out and inspecting these tents. Later on, at some point when we can get to that, we'd like to move that from 1,500 square foot down to 400 square foot, but we're not asking for permission at this time. We feel that's something that'll come at a later date. For the firework permit, we figured that's about an hour, quarter hour for looking through Evolve, and then 3/4 of an hour to actually go out and do inspection of the site. Again, we're putting this at about $75 is what our fee was, where we based it at. And when we get into bonfires for municipal code, that's the one we just went through, ordinance 1480. For that one, we're also looking at approximately an hour. We do have an hour, quarter hour for Evolve, and then about 3/4 of an hour to go to the site, do a site study plan, also make sure that information's put forth to them, how to safely go about conducting that. And then on the fire suppression permit, we feel that's approximately 3 hours. And that one, we're gonna move from $125 to $225. And that's based on the $75 fee that we were looking at per hour. So we figure about 3 hours with that one. That one deals with a hydrostatic test, making sure the system stays at 200 PSI for 2 hours. So that's what we have to make sure with that system, that it's gonna do once all the components are in place. The last one is the fire alarm, to make sure the fire alarm actually goes to dispatch. So when we're called, that information is coming across. And then it also deals with the above the ceiling and fire file for that, each one of those occupancies.
Would you please explain to me in a fire suppression?
Correct.
What does that mean?
This would be a sprinkler system located in each one of the buildings if they're required to have a sprinkler system in that building.
Okay. So what you're doing is testing the sprinkler system to make sure it's functioning properly.
That's correct. We're in conjunction with the sprinkler company, whoever installed it, and also the fire alarm company, whoever installs that. We're working in conjunction with them and the property owner.
Okay. Is there any, on the sprinkler systems, as you go through all the steps on making sure that they're working through the testing, is there any difference between what I'll reference as 21st century systems versus those that may have been in the building from mid-20th century forward? So would the older systems require more effort to inspect?
To inspect, no, because what we rely on heavily is whoever's coming in and doing the maintenance on that system. We have the compliance engine in place where they upload their documentation to the compliance engine. I can look at that information and I can see where the deficiencies are in their system.
Okay.
Is there a difference between installation in the let's say just 1950s versus installation today? Yes. Different materials, better materials, and we also require a fire alarm system when the building is not going to be monitored. So if there's a period of time that no one is in that building, we want a monitored system so that it actually goes somewhere. Like at the fire department, we don't necessarily have to have it monitored, simply for the fact that we have people here 24 hours a day. If the alarm goes off, someone will hear it. So it doesn't go to any off-site location.
Okay.
So there is a difference, even from 20 years ago, what would installation look like.
You used the term better materials. Were you talking about the older systems or the newer?
newer in the fact that we have better fire alarm systems currently, and we've got better pipe, we've got a lot more systems where it's easier installation for the contractor.
That's fine, that's fine. I thought that's what you meant, but wanted to be sure.
Okay, I would like a motion to approve the updates to our current fee schedule, please.
Can I make a motion and add that we review this again in the year to ensure that we're at the correct amount?
Let's do two separate motions. Okay, so we have a motion by Steve to accept the update of the current fee schedule. Second by? Second by Mike. Any further discussion? No.
No,
Okay.
I'm discussing.
Roll call.
Meek,
Yes.
Banker,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Okay, second motion, Steve.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we revisit this next year for the fee schedule to ensure that we're at the correct amount with the costs that have gone up on everything, and if need be, adjusted upward or whatever needs to be done.
So we have a motion to review the fee schedule and update if needed 1 year from now. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mike. Roll call, please.
Meek,
Yes.
Banker,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. We have at least two, at this meeting, we've done two items where we have said we want to review in a year or so. Somebody has to be maintaining a tickler file so that those show up on the agenda a year from now.
We can have that placed on a future calendar.
Yeah, well, someone's got to keep track of it.
It'll be done.
Okay.
Can we add that to our outlook again? Comes up in 1 year.
Yeah,
We'll add that.
just add it to next year's calendar right away, hopefully. Yeah. All right, item number 19 was continue reviewing, discussing, and making changes as needed to the mission statement, orientation outline, and job duties. As Commissioner Myers and I discussed, this is something that requires presence of all the commissioners, and this will be placed to a future meeting.
That's a good idea.
Do we have any items for future meetings?
I think what we have talked about as,
Police department's fee schedule.
So I don't have anything to add, but I would like to, if you haven't already done so, Ward, I'd like to note that Commissioner Steingraber was excused for today because he had contact me earlier and said he wouldn't be available.
That's being done right now. So, on the future agenda, we have police department fee schedule.
False alarms.
False alarms. And you'll come back if you've got any information or ideas from any of the schools regarding.
If any are turned in, you'll see them. Yeah.
I was considering some of the neat artwork we've got from some of the children that visit. Perhaps we could even go into the lower levels and see what they've got.
I have a whole book I can share with you. I just copy a couple of the
Oh,
good ones.
that's the good
I'm sure
one.
Cindy does the same.
I was gonna say, because some of these kids got some really
Yeah, there's some that are neat.
bright blues in there. Okay, there being no other business, this meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
You too, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, soon.
how you doing, Mike? Are you feeling okay or?
I'm on the mend. I've spent